What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Mastercrafted. This week we are back with another Mind Over Meta, talking about this last week in 40k. Frankie, as always, has been piling up the stats to let us know who's been winning. Some very interesting results. And then Phil decided to join us this week. Great to have you on. How you guys doing today? We'll start with you, Phil.
I'm good. I'm a little nervous. The meta is about to shift dramatically, as we always see during this Grotmas time of year. We're definitely not getting as many detachments as usual, but we're already starting to see the fluctuations of a meta change due to the new units that we've gotten, the new detachments that we've gotten, and we are starting to see the impact now with this most recent set of data from Frankie.
Yeah, for sure. Frankie, why don't you go ahead? You were the one who compiled these numbers. What are some of the things that stood out the most to you this week?
Sure. I mean, this is just 1 week of data. Obviously, no new detachments yet. Data slate hasn't come. But Space Marines still creeping up. Their win percentage seems to go up every week. They have a ton of players. Obviously, that's always the case. Tons of tournaments in winning position, tons of undefeateds, and the second most GT wins. I think the impact of the Victrix and some of the new detachments is really affecting the meta a lot. The interesting thing on here, to me, the most interesting thing is Guard with 4 GT wins. But I know you have something to say about that. But
Maybe a little.
Yeah. I mean, again, things are pretty well balanced. The top only 7 armies are over 50%, which I think is interesting too. That means 21 armies are under 50%. So there are definitely a few like top dogs that are running the meta. AdMech, again, super high win percentage, but no tournament wins. It seems when we looked at all of the data slate info last week, it was kind of their win rates were super low, the win rate was high, but the tournament wins were super low relative to that. I guess they just must have a hard time finishing off stuff at top tables. With the exception of guys, like Art of War guys or whatever. But yeah, I think it probably is a little bit tricky against top players. But other than that, most things, looking about the same as they were. Imperial Agents with a 6% win rate. I thought that was pretty funny. Only a couple players, obviously not real data set. But Drukhari had a rough week. I was talking about this with some of my teammates. Some of the bottom performing armies, I think, are really being affected negatively by the rise of Space Marines right now. Some armies just have nothing to deal with Victrix and some of the other things that Space Marines got going for them right now. We were talking about it too, and the Victrix are 8.75 points per wound, and an intercessor is 8 points per wound. So just toss that around in your brain a little bit, and it's kind of nuts.
Yeah, so its Victrix are 210 points, and how many is a unit of 6 Flawless Blades?
Yeah. 6 Flawless Blades is 220, yeah.
220, and Victrix are how much? 90?
210.
210?
Yeah.
210. 10 points less for a 6-mana Victrix than a 6-mana Flawless Blades.
I hope GW does the right thing and hits them in the slate. They did just come out, so they might not, but they need to go up a little bit. I think even a lot of my friends who are Space Marine players and good players are like, yeah, these guys are way too cheap. So.
Yeah, that's, I think, the thing most people are looking for balance-wise to come up this next week, right? If we can just tone them down a little bit, that would be nice. And I think the point you brought up about, a lot of these armies that we're seeing towards the bottom now that it's like kind of in full swing are armies that require 2 phases of damage to truly deal with things. A lot of them, right? You want to get close and do some melee, but you generally need to get a little shooting in there as well. And that just makes it so hard to apply that damage when they have not only the reactive move you have to deal with, but the blood surge as well. It's so hard to play around that mechanic, especially when there's multiple units who can do it turn after turn. Like a lot of these armies can only deal with that trick maybe 1 or 2 times and even have a chance to stay in that game. But a lot of those armies that I'm looking like, at the bottom, for the most part, they're armies that need to get up close to apply their damage effectively and actually play the game, deny primary, right? And they're just not going to do it because Victory Scar just doesn't allow that to happen.
Yeah, I think it's always a little bit troubling when Space Marines are, in the top chunk of win percentage. Not because there's anything wrong with that. I think that's totally fine. Space Marines should be good, but it's something we've talked about a bunch. Like, a lot of newer players play Space Marines. A lot of people with their custom chapters and like just that. So there's a lot of not necessarily super competitive people playing it. And all of their numbers are in here too, and they're still pushing 55% on the real win percentage, and I think that can be bad for the meta overall, just because there are so many players that play Space Marines.
Yeah, overall it's interesting, right? We've had this conversation before on this channel, where I genuinely believe that there's the Space Wolves, like if we take Space Wolves and Blood Angels and Black Templars, those should be completely separate, because this is the roundabout way of saying that GW has a really hard time balancing just in general, right? Like, and it's an incredibly hard game to balance, and they've done an incredible job up to this point to get us to a point where we're at a very healthy meta where there's a lot of factions that can do well. We just had Mike Pestilens and Trey On, who is our most recent GT winner, and he's running CSM. That is at the bottom of this list, but obviously they're good enough in the right hands to win GTs. But here it doesn't represent that. But then on the flip side, if we talk about balancing, right, like armies like Black Templars and Blood Angels and Space Wolves, unfortunately, they get lumped into Space Marines, and it's a huge faction to try to balance. And that's why I'm a huge proponent of, like, you need to cut every codex, separate each one individually. You have Space Wolves, you have you have your generic Ultramarines, then you got Blood Angels, and you got Black Templars, and that way, there's an actual reasonable chance you could balance these things, because otherwise, like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna have
If you
this.
want to run Sanguinary Guard or something, you should not be allowed to run them in Gladius, right? You should have to use a Blood Angels detachment. Like, it just makes things way too complicated. There's too many, like you're saying, there's too many interactions. There's too many weird combos that weren't accounted for, and yeah. That was the whole Bloodless Angels thing from from earlier in the edition. That was, I'm glad they changed that, but there's still a little bit of work to do there, I think.
For sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna go on my little thing. I'm proud of Guard. This week we did get 4 GT wins. Was a single one of them over 32 players or more? No, but we squeaked in. All right, we made it over Frankie's metric of 26 players minimum. One of them being 26, another 28, another 30, and another 31. They're small GT wins, but they're GT wins all the same. I really wish we had another week. Maybe you guys could have held off till after the data slate, right? Don't give GW any reason to nerf us some more. But, happy to see Guard up there. Small wins are still wins, baby. We take those.
New detachment looks fun too.
The new detachment, I think it's going to be pretty spicy for people who like that combined style, but would rather lean on infantry instead. I think it really gives you the best option for something that can really apply damage through like Kazarkin and things like that into a more flexible range of targets, right? Being able to, you lose your lethals on all of your infantry going into all other infantry, but now some of those special heavy weapons, actually can maybe, you can boost them up with lethal hits. You can hit a 20 mana Krieg who potentially have +1 to hit, from their own army roll, as well as the extra AP order. And then, just try to get some lethals with the built-in rerolls from being ordered. I think there's actual punch now from some of the, infantry side of Guard. We don't have to rely purely on tanks. Other things benefit. Till in Rough Riders, you're not just losing an extra hit on your Melta-Spear with the reroll 1 redundancy, the reroll 1s to wound. I think Guard is probably going to be pretty well off as long as they don't get hit on some of those things going into the data slate, which I don't see any reason why they would.
Yeah. think Armor of Contempt on your Dorns is going to be pretty nice.
Yeah, I honestly I think it's gonna turn out to be kind of one of those things. Like you can go a balanced version, but it seems like in my mind you benefit from going mostly in one direction or the other. Either just really running a lot of infantry and like Kazarkin and horses, more that style in the Bulgrin, and just being a lot of bodies to deal with, and really try to abuse how effectively you can just keep putting wave after wave out there, or just lean into the tanks. Like it's not horrible. And honestly, I don't think it's going to be the top cheddar option, but realistically, I do think super heavies actually aren't horrible. The reason why I think it's one of the things that most people haven't looked at is when you give the ignore cover, you just give it to one of your own units, and they benefit no matter what they shoot at. So taking one of those chassis and being able to declare multiple targets and having ignore cover against multiple targets with all your flamers, all that stuff is actually going to be pretty efficient. I don't know if it's I don't think it's top cheddar by any means, but it's a very efficient way to go about using a very cheap and good order or stratagem, I mean.
Bulgrin are genuinely scary, I think, in that detachment. And then talk about Le Mans Russes too. We had a little conversation about this the other day. Are they back or what?
So I actually think Lehman Russ battle tanks actually become more viable than potentially some of the Dorns, just because it's one of the few things without having just baked in lethals, right? You just kind of wait a fire with multiple Dorns, but by having full hit rerolls and being able to just target one of your Lehman Russes per turn with I'm going to give you lethals, you stack AP with an exterminator beforehand. That battle cannon actually can do something at AP2 ignores cover, as well as the rest of your all the 4 melta shots and all that stuff. Actually, pretty good. Yeah, I think Lehman Russ battle tanks will probably start popping up again. Dorns are still gross though. T12 with AOC, pretty good, and a blank like regular Dorns, because you have more orders from the extra order stuff. The commanders aren't as necessary, and their built-in reroll isn't as necessary either on the commanders. So I think we might see more of a push towards more spam in that detachment of non-officer tanks, and you'll see more holes. So.
Well, like Lehman Russes are dirt cheap. We talked to Martin Cooper over in England when we saw his triple Vanquisher winning list, and we asked him a lot of questions because we saw triple Vanquisher, no Rogaldorns, and he won a huge GT with it. And like that chassis in and of itself is incredibly durable. It is dirt cheap, and now you're making it hyper efficient in shooting, and getting over that kind of AP1 hurdle, which is something that has held it back for a long time. So
Well, it can be
yeah,
AP3 now, technically, right? Wasn't there a strat or a
So you can go with the order now for extra
order.
AP, and you could also stack with an exterminator. So yeah, you could be AP3 ignores cover. And I think that's the other reason why I like the battle tank. It's the only way, if you're going to go the tank variant, that I feel comfortable not giving +1 to hit. Because you have full hit rerolls, it's almost effectively the same as hitting on 3s versus 4s. And so that helps a little bit. Like that's another way to look at it. And then if you're extra AP, and even at the basement you don't have the exterminator, you're still AP2 ignores cover, just based off of one order and one strat. That makes them pretty efficient. And on top of that, right, you still have 4 melta shots and a las cannon that also feel pretty nice. And I mean that's a cheap chassis to just go throw out there, even at 185 for the Lehman Russ battle tank itself. It feels a little bit better. Would you rather have 3 of those that you can trade more effectively now, because with those buffs they can do pretty well? Or would you rather have some Dorns that you kind of have to peek out and try to make sure they survive over long turns?
looking at this data while we get back to it, so we don't divest too much into Lane's wet dream of Astromilitar running the meta. Some things that stand out to me: Black Templars, only 17 players, 47% win percentage. Nothing has changed with Black Templars. They are still insane. Like Sword Brethren are still fantastic. Repexes with full rerolls within 12, right? Like that is still cracked out of its mind. So freaking good. But we're not seeing as many players play them. We've seen them drop significantly in popularity, and they're not necessarily winning as many tournaments. And seeing them drop below may give you a false sense of confidence into what Gladius Black Templars is, but I'm just telling you right now, it is still very good.
But like, is it good into Ultramarines right now? Like, if you have a bunch of Space Marines models, like, are you running Ultramarines or are you running Black Templars? Like,
Yeah. I think I would agree. I think it's one of those things, right? People who can shift made the shift. They're just playing Victrix Guard Ultramarines now. They're leaving their Black Templar stuff at home. They're like, we don't need those for now. But if the nerfs that we suspect might come along, I think Black Templars are just probably going to hop right back up to being, potentially one of the best versions of Space Marines there is to run again. It's still very, very good. It's just Victrix be better. So,
yep. Like the footprint. Think about the footprint, toughness,
Oh, yeah.
and damage output of Victrix compared to Crusaders, which do kind of the same thing as Victrix, right? Like, they're a smaller footprint, way harder to kill, do more damage. I mean, you can't attach a Justiciar to them, but
One benefit I think Black Templars have is the Repexes. Their shooting is better than I think what Victrix that list kind of looks like.
I mean, you still have oaths, right, with Ultramarines, so your Repexes can get rerolls if you want them to. It's
Sure.
not built in like it is with the Templars one, but it's still there.
yeah. Well, and it's also one of those things, I think, too, where it's not efficient. If you're trying to shoot Repexes to kill 2-up save, -1 to wound stuff,
Yeah.
even if you get, one or two your big laser destructor shots through, your plink shots still do nothing with how little AP they have. And if who you're shooting at Armor of Contempt, you're still just not chewing through Victrix. It's just not going to happen.
Okay, well, absolutely fair. Well, we've kind of broken down what the meta looks like right now. We have some very, very interesting stuff. Now we're gonna kind of go over a list that we found, and we thought it was only appropriate in the age of Space Marines and all that stuff. We say, screw that. No, let's talk about some bugs because they're hungry. Let's talk about a Subterranean Assault Strike Force list by Ryan Verbeck. This ended up winning, obviously, the tournament that he was at. And yeah, I'll run us through the list, and then Frank, you are our Tyranid specialist. Why don't you give us some thoughts after?
Sure.
So we got first of all, Subterranean Assault. I think this is the best version of Tyranids, only because it very much fits my playstyle. Really, really fun, really, really interesting. So 2 units of Hyper Adapted Raveners, a Neuro Tyrant, another Neuro Tyrant, squad of Gargoyles, 2 squads of Hormagaunts, 1 Biovore, 120 men of Nergaunts, 3 Neurolictors, 3 Pyrovores, 3x5 Raveners, and then 2 full 5-mana Zoanthropes. No Carnifexes, no big bugs, no Malceptors, nothing. This definitely relies on the Raveners significantly.
I love it. So the neuro tyrants attached to the zoanthropes, and they can pop up and down all over the board with the tunnels, and he makes them super efficient. So you're hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s because of the detachment ability, sustained and ignore cover when you pop out of the ground. They slap some stuff for sure. They have a great anti-infantry profile. They have a great anti-tank profile. They're doing the majority of the lifting when it comes to killing stuff in this list for sure. Hyper adapted Raveners, I think they're still overcosted, but I don't really leave home without them either. They're pretty awesome. You can, in this detachment, you can either attach them or leave them separate from the other Raveners, who are just uppy downeying. The regular Raveners just uppy downeying the whole game, putting up tunnels. And then the hyper adapted, they also put up tunnels, but they have free rapid, free heroic. So sometimes in some matchups, you'll want to attach them to the regular Raveners and have them kind of uppy downy, rapid in, like really disrupt stuff. And the full brick can kill a lot of stuff. But separately, they're also great too. If you're playing against like MSU Marines or something, you might not want the big bricks. The little units give you a lot more utility as far as scoring and things like that, and can still pick up, Marines and Marine bodies and any kind of MSU list. Yeah, I think it's cool. I always think about my Neuro Tyrants as like sitting on my home objective, waiting for shadows in the warp. This list doesn't do that, which is pretty cool. Gargoyles obviously are amazing too.
Yeah.
Man, I love them in my GSC. They're fantastic. I do think it's really interesting, the triple Neurolictor,
Yep.
right? Like that is obviously looking to capitalize on your Shadow in the Warp or additional battle shocks, because
Yep.
that does it at -1, right? As well, it forces
They're an
battle
awesome
shocks at
utility
-1.
piece too. Just
Yeah, yeah.
with the lone op, they can pop in and out of tunnels. You know, if you don't want to waste your Raveners on scoring points, they need to charge something. While your Neurolictor can go get area denial and make something come out and kill them, or you're holding that center objective.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're great.
And you got some decent chaff clear with the Pyrovores. You are running 3 of them. The Flame Spurt D6 plus 3 shots is solid.
They turn off cover, which is and
That's
again they're
probably what you're using for more, right? Like you hit
yep.
something with that, so the zones can go through to
Yeah,
make
one
sure,
of your
especially
units
if
of
some.
zone throps is going to be getting ignored cover and sustained every turn, but if
Yep.
you want to ignore cover with any of the other units, the Pyrovores can do that for you. Plus, they're
Seems
amazing. Little heart pain in the ass. You actually have to dedicate real fire to remove them. They're just one little unit that can come in out of reserves or come in out of a tunnel again and score. To me, this list looks like it does a lot of scoring really well, which is cool. But because it's also kind of deadly.
Yeah. Yeah, that seems like a really solid list. Tons of trading pieces, or you can kind of, you know, full commit whenever you need to. Really solid. A lot of board control too. Just with all those extra pieces and just being in the way.
I should have mentioned too the 22 Neurogaunts. I love that. It's 90 points, I think, for 22 of them. They force your opponent to get rid of Call the Horde. They make them have to go after that unit for Call the Horde. So that's a little tech piece that I've seen used quite a bit in a few different lists. It's so cheap, and it just like screens your entire backfield. It can spread synapse all over the place, and then you're like, oh, you got Call the Horde. Too bad you have to try and kill this stupid 90-point unit.
Yeah.
It's all the way in the back of my deployment zone.
I feel like this is a little bit of a tangent. I just feel like Call the Horde, even though the requirements went down, I still it never comes up in a game ever.
You get a 10 on it once. I think I was playing against Black Tide. And I had it was like turn 4, and I had 2 Crusader bricks whittled down to like 3 or 4 guys and just finished them both off. But yeah, it doesn't come up too much.
Yeah.
Maybe that's one of the things we'll see changed. I doubt it, but there are some secondaries, Call the Horde being one, Marked for Death being another.
Still dumb.
Can be one of those ones that's just like a dead draw that very rarely do you ever actually score it, but when you do, it's because your opponent didn't have any other choice.
Yeah. I'm not a real fan of Tempting Target either.
Tempting Target?
I mean, for some armies, it's fine, right? Like if I'm Drukhari, I'm like, oh, cool, whatever. Yeah. Like auto get it, and then if I'm Death Guard, I'm like, oh, guess I'm just not going to get that one.
And I think that's one of those things. Like I know we talk a lot about needing to like build your list to be able to do any of these things and stuff, but I just think in general for the health of the game, it would actually be better that Tempting Target is just a redraw. You can't keep it if you want to. It's a redraw turn 1.
I like that.
I think that would help a lot. Of like, you know, we're in general we're trying to deny things anyway at some point during the game, but turn 1 where it's like, man, I wanted to be able to go deny you, but now I'm going to throw because I can't give up an easy 5 points. Yeah. I have to score something, and I can't spend CP to redraw it. You know, that doesn't make any sense. So now I throw my denial unit onto your natural because obviously that's what you chose, and now I'm just down on utility for the rest of the game because I'm not denying you primary. We're turn 1, right? Like I just threw something there to die for 5 points, and I don't love it, but.
Well, the meta is in a really interesting spot. I suspect we'll see a lot more changes, but with the holiday break, as we experienced last year, there is usually a downtick in players because obviously people are going to go enjoy time with their families and do stuff like that. But we still got more 40k coming your way. I know this weekend I have an RTT, and then next month I have 2 tournaments. One being the Las Vegas teams, and then most importantly the Denver Fight Club GT. Lane and I will be streaming that tournament. It's going to be huge. We have people coming from out of the country for that. We're talking about one of the biggest tournaments in Colorado. And then we got more on the docket. So please stay tuned. We have lots of 40K coming up. Lane, you want to sign us out?
Oh, yeah, always. Do not forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and join the Discord, as Phil was saying. And last but not least, do not forget that victory isn't given, it is forged. And it's forged right here on Mastercrafted. We will see you all next time.
See you guys.
Bye.